You're listening to Always Building.
All right, guys, welcome to the Always Building podcast. Today, I got a real special treat for you. A brilliant young man who is making waves in just about everything he fucking touches. It's just insane. Dude is like he's like an alchemist over here, turning shit into gold left and right. I'm watching him just like, just run laps around dudes, that just, my age and above. It's just this new crop of genius dudes that I'm just super excited to kind of get on this podcast and pick their brains and gonna enjoy it too. Today we got Nick Abraham, founder of, I rattle off all the names, but primarily I guess LeadBird is sort of where you're very strong. You've also got SaaS projects. We can kind of go into all that, maybe plug some at the end too, kind of get the folks in the know of what you're doing. I know you just released Quicklines. You got it's just the list goes on. I'm not even going to try to do it right now, but Abraham is on the podcast. So, a round of applause for Nick. Let's jump into it, man.
Let's do it.
I kind of want to start with you, dude. Like, this is something that, we've spoken about before, but I'd love to kind of get, in the know here around where you started, you've been doing all these years, starting from, pretty humble, simple beginnings and being in college, all the shit that you've been doing. Let's whole landscape of sort of where Nick Abraham comes from. And then we'll go from there, man. Just kind of let it go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a great question, right? Like, let's kind of go all the way back, right? So, I'm Indian, grew up in a regular Indian household. Parents are stressing on school very hard. Growing up just a normal kid. Like, I never did anything too crazy. Just living. And I've always had kind of like, I guess like an entrepreneurial kind of like kick to me in a way. Like I growing up in middle school, I was like selling like custom socks to kids. I would throw a whole bunch of basketball tournaments. I just do a whole bunch of things. I really love doing like these side hustles and just trying to figure out different ways to make money. High school, just once again, average kid, wasn't like the smartest. Like I'd make A's and B's, nothing crazy. Like, just kind of coasting by. And then I think my senior year in college, or going into my freshman year in college, or senior year in high school, going into my freshman year in college, I kind of was starting to get into like this online, like, internet money type of thing. I grew an Instagram page called Money Marketeers to like 50,000 followers. And that was like, I guess my first real win, because like, I started selling like Instagram growth books and a whole bunch of these small little things on there, shout outs and stuff like that. And it really just kind of like hit me in the head, because I was like, this is pretty crazy, because, I'm making like, decent money for like an 18-year-old. And I'm like, I'm working at a gas station at that point too, I think, as like a part-time job while I'm in college. And I'm like, I'm making more money off my phone than I was at the gas station. And that just kind of like blew my mind in a way, right? And so going to college, like, my goal was to, become a lawyer. I also wanted to be like, I was in school to get my degree in accounting. And, I wanted to go become a lawyer after that. And so that was the whole play. And then once I started kind of getting into like this online space more and more, it just kind of like flipped my mind. I'm like, why do I really want to go, get an accounting degree and become a lawyer? And, like, who am I really doing that for? And then it kind of just really like hit me that, I'm not really doing this for anyone, or I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for everyone else. And so, I feel like the online world just kind of gave me an opportunity to just kind of do things that I like to do. And things that I found interesting. And that's, what took me into creating my first agency, which failed completely. I was like 18 years old trying to do Instagram management. I scaled it pretty well. I got to like 10K in under like 60 days, but it was just like a total failure of a service. But, it was fun. I got all my clients through cold emailing, which is, what I learned to end up creating my second agency, LeadBird. And so that's the whole route of me.
Background as an entrepreneur, man. And I know we have a lot of Indian folks in the community, and I think they would resonate with that kind of your experience, which is sort of breaking free and that sort of planned path, that everyone puts you on.
Yeah, it was definitely tough at the beginning, just because like, especially like, because it's pretty like pretty new since I've kind of dropped out of school. And my parents, just like them hearing that, like my mom's still kind of like, a little upset about it. I mean, honestly, I could go back. I only have about 12 credits to finish, and I probably will go back just because, for my parents, I want to graduate. But my dad kind of understood. My dad kind of comes from an entrepreneurial route as well. Really, I just kind of showed him like how much I'm making, kind of just showed him that Stripe account. And then he was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like you're doing pretty well. So, keep doing your thing. And so, he's in pretty good full support. I think my mom still has, like, she doesn't really understand like business and what, like, she doesn't know what lead generation is. Right. And so,
Sure.
to her, she's like, oh, I think he's just doing something. I don't really know. And so that's why she doesn't fully believe in it. But like my dad's like, you obviously know what you're doing. You have a pretty cool team. Like, I've met some of the guys you work with, like, and I see how much you're making, like, go for it.
Wonderful, man. Wonderful. That's so great. I mean, it's cool that you got one family member that's sort of, behind you and has that a little bit of that background, or kind of feels what you're doing. So that's so helpful. I think it's hard, man. I mean, when you have no support, like many of us do, especially in the entrepreneur, you're just you're getting going and you're just things and you're just hoping something sticks, right? And it's it can be really lonely, kind of a lonely vibe, you know what I mean? So that's so cool that your dad's behind it. So cool. So let's zoom into, why don't we talk about the failure of the first agency? I'd love to hear a little bit about like just that your experience going through that and building that, and then sort of, something not connecting or it being too based on one platform, or so how did you, what was that moment where you were kind of like, fuck, this isn't working, I'm going to find something else?
Yeah. So, I love that. This is actually really great because I never really like spoke about this like aloud and stuff. But like, so basically, 18 years old, I grew my first Instagram page, did really well. I ended up selling that page, had a good amount of cash, and I was like, okay, I want to do this again, but I want to do this for other people and provide it as a service, right? Instagram growth management kind of service. And, and so when you first start a business, especially at 18 years old, you don't know how any of this operates. You don't know about systems. You don't know about automations. You don't know about any of this, right? Yeah. And so, I think I was just cold emailing doctors, and I was like, hey, I can grow your Instagram page. Like, I've done it for this person. Like, do you want to give it a shot? I think eventually someone said yes. I got her on a sales call. She was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was kind of shocked. She was like, send the contract. And I was like, I don't even got contracts. Like, what do I do here? And so, was able to like, kind of start my business with her. And then I noticed that it was kind of hard to scale because it's like, I could only manage like 3 or 4 pages a day, but because I was doing like everything from creating the content to writing the captions to posting it and then managing the client. Like I was like, this is impossible. And then I kind of, learned about virtual assistants. And it's funny because during this time period, I ended up seeing one of these guys, who sells these courses and the high ticket courses, right? And I think I was like 18 and I bought like a course that was like $5,000 to $6,000, and then they get you a virtual assistant. And then the virtual assistant, will help, you can delegate the work and do lead generate, one of those courses, right? And it was complete bullshit. Like the course was so bad, like it was terrible. And they gave me a virtual assistant that was just like, I mean, at that point as well, like I wasn't a leader. I wasn't like operationally minded. Like I didn't understand what it was to have someone on your team. And so like I shouldn't have even had to like look for a virtual assistant, like I wasn't at that pace, but we just tried to make it work and it just didn't work. And then just trying to like figure everything out kind of had my head spinning and like, kind of figuring out what can I do to make this work, right? And so I learned a lot, I learned, so much about what it means to hire someone, train someone, onboard them, and then like what it means to create like an actual project management system. And and that's why I'm so happy it failed, because it's like, I learned so much on that way. And then when I started up the next agency, it was like it was easy. It just all clicked, and it was so easy to grow it because I knew exactly what I needed to do. And so with that first agency, I think we scaled up to 17 clients. We weren't charging much. We were at like less than 15K MRR for sure. Our churn was pretty horrendous, and I was doing like a lot of the work. I think we had like 10 VAs in total that were kind of doing like the creating the content, like the engagement, stuff like that. And yeah, it just wasn't like a business model that was like, because like the way I see it, it's like if I'm going to be in this business, like it has to be something that's going to be around for the next 10 years. And I just didn't see much really growth in that space. Specifically the way I was doing it, because I was doing a lot of manual like growth stuff, and it just wasn't like something I knew that would be there forever. Because like the offer is just not that good either. Like with the targeting, it's like,
not a hard ROI, right? It's kind of like
exactly.
a soft ROI. Yeah.
And so like I knew that this wouldn't be around for the next 10 years. So I was like, cool, I made some good money. Like, I don't want to spend my time in here anymore. Let me just try to do something else and something that I enjoy doing. And that was really like the cold emailing and the lead generation and the sales. Like, I love that stuff. That stuff was so much fun.
That's so cool, man. I mean, I think when you started the new agency, it was like you knew what not to do, even more so than what to do. You were like, I know what not to do, and I'm not gonna go buy the first course I see. I'm not gonna go on board 5 VAs right away that I don't have the time to train, and I'm not gonna do a lot of the work myself, right? It's like just that kind of like you knew exactly what you didn't want to be doing and what would not work. And I love that you kind of focused in on that it's like, because it's the natural thing, right? Especially out there in the world right now, there's a lot of people going, okay, all you have to do is come up with an idea, solve a problem, and then get 5 VAs, and then it's easy. It just goes, right? And it's like 4-hour work week kind of methodology, and you're like, shit, man, it doesn't work like that, man. It's there's a lot more to it than that. I guess they oversimplify it quite a bit. So it seems like you experienced that firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing with a lot of these agency courses and stuff, it's like there's no one shoe fits all, right? Like there's like everyone's agency is like I know a lot of really high performing agencies, and the way that they use like their account managers, for example, it's like completely different from agency to agency. And so it's like when you create a course teaching them like how to go from 10 to 50K, there's just so many different variances. It's like there's no way that course is really going to be able to help you go from like 10 to 50. Like it's just not like, and if it does, great, but like for the most case, like you're better off trying to figure it out on your own or just paying someone for some consulting to kind of look at your specific scenario and like figure it out from them and get advice from them. Like that's what I wish I did at that point.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because you're kind of that carving your own path. You know what I mean? Rather than when did Twitter enter the equation? When did the partners enter the equation? And how did you kind of create those partnerships and cultivate those relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before Twitter, right? So I mean, we met off of Twitter, obviously, right? Before Twitter,
Right.
I had my agency, and so I'll tell you a couple things that were going with it, right? So this is whenever I was running like B2B outreach, right? And I was doing this for a while because I really loved the cold emailing space. I thought it was really fun. I thought there was like so many little tricks and hacks and stuff like that, and it was just like so much fun. And so literally, I think within like 2 to 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, I was able to grow my agency from like 0 to I think about 30K MRR before I got onto Twitter. And we were doing completely performance based. We were doing like pay per appointment, B2B lead gen. And I got a lot of my clients from Facebook groups. I got a lot of my clients from cold emailing, obviously. And it was good. But there was like a whole bunch of pieces in there that like I was struggling to put together. And I really just needed like partners that I could depend on to like carry out those functions, right? So before I got on Twitter, I had a sales rep. He was really great, but he just didn't understand like this marketing space as well, right? And so it was really hard for him to kind of comprehend some of these like rebuttals and questions that he would get on the sales call, right? So our closing percentage was like not the best, and so like it was just hard for me to depend on him to like consistently close deals. And so there was that piece, and then it's also like if I'm focusing on the back end operations, I can't really focus on lead gen, and so it's like it was just kind of hard for me to balance all the hats again. And so, got on Twitter, met some really cool people. I met Sam Thompson, which, we're partnered up on a ton of different projects right now. And, he kind of came in and he was like, yo, like sales rep, awesome. Got Martel. Let's put him in. He crushes it. Martel's literally the best closer I've ever seen, right? He's absolutely insane with it. And now I can fully trust him with the sales, right? And then on the lead gen side, Sam's like, I can take care of this. You just worry about the back end operations. And that's what I love to do. I love to do the operational side of businesses. And I got to focus on what I'm best at. I gotta let them focus what they're best at. And then we're able to just grow it really quickly. And so now, at Twitter, I think on Twitter, when I first started, I had like maybe like 10 to 15 clients, somewhere around there. Right now we're at like 54 or 56, somewhere around there. And we're growing. Honestly, my end of year goal is to be at 100. I don't know if we'll hit that, just because we're changing how we're positioning ourselves. But yeah, that's kind of how it kind of can be with LeadBird, with like all the other SaaS platforms that I run, with like Inboxy, Quicklines. Truthfully, I got pretty lucky. I actually got a cold email from a guy named Eric, which is a really good friend of mine now. And he was trying to sell me on Inboxy. But the thing was, is like, he had a great product. He had, we work on a whole bunch of different things together. We work on an agency together. We work on Inboxy, Emmy, Leah, and Quicklines together as well. He had all these great products, but he just didn't know how to market it. And I was, starting to have a pretty good audience on Twitter. And so it just became a natural collaboration. He was like, hey, I'd love to bring you on as a partner. And, if you could take care of like kind of operational stuff as well as kind of like the growth, I'm more than happy to have you.
Seems like what you focused on was actually running the business, number one, first and foremost. Number two, you focused on creating great content. You were creating very good content that was educational. It was helping folks. You were growing quickly. You were partnering with sort of people that were just coming in, going, yeah, man, of course, let's all help each other and create this good content. And it's that content that started to like bring the people in, right? Like in a way, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe kind of maybe we could talk about that a little bit, about kind of like attracting mentors and partners rather than, because some people are like, they ask me too. They're like, Alex, how do I go find a mentor? And I go, generally mentors find you, man. That's kind of like, you know what I mean? So I'd love you to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, so it's pretty funny because so Eric didn't even know about me on Twitter or anything, right? I think he just naturally,
interesting.
He was just emailing
another
me.
Dimension to it.
Yeah, he was just emailing me to pitch me on Inboxy, right? And then I ended up pitching him back on that call. I was like, wait, so you don't have that many users. Like, are you looking to grow this thing? And he's like, hell yeah, I'm looking to grow this thing. And then I literally just popped up my Twitter analytics. And I showed him like how many impressions I do a month just off of my audience. And that really got him interested. And then I kind of just like, I never asked for anything at that point. I was just kind of like really positioning myself as like, I'm not even really positioning. I was just trying to provide as much value as I could to him, right? Like I was showing him a lot of the systems that we were doing inside of LeadBird, because he also runs like a very, very massive B2B outreach agency in the enterprise space that now we work on together.
Awesome.
And a lot of his systems were in just shambles. He doesn't really have many systems. And so I was just showing him how to organize things and how to kind of get himself out of the business and things like that. And so, he was able to show me a whole bunch of like growth hacking stuff. And so we were just able to collab really well on that. And so that's kind of how that partnership came together. With Sam, I actually don't even remember how Sam reached out to me or if I reached out to him, but we ended up getting on a call, super great call. We just kicked it off, had a great little thing going on. And then I think I met up with his really good friend, which is like a mentor for, I guess kind of both of us, Steven. And I met up with him in Dallas to grab coffee. And, Steven's a great guy. You should definitely have him on here, Steven Ullman. And I don't know, I guess I don't really know how me and Sam kind of partnered up on things, but we just kind of did. And he's brought me in on a lot of projects like Closeify, for example. And we're working on a whole bunch of other SaaS projects together. So, yeah.
Amazing. I'm definitely taking a note to get in touch with Steven, because I'd love to hear his side of the story as well. It seems like it's. So that's awesome, man. So you're I think this is such a great thing, because what these kind of general themes of the podcast here are kind of like coming out organically. Like I definitely didn't plan on these being cornerstones of this thing, but it seems like it's like building relationships, right? Over volume, over impressions, over everything. It's about building relationships. All the rest of the shit kind of comes from those relationships, right? And just adding value, as you said, being genuine, adding value, being real, just throwing out great information out there. Without any email opt-in, with it, we're not doing like 2010 HubSpot, 2007 inbound marketing. This is just throwing out content to help people. Paywall, no gated content, and you're just attracting folks and getting these kinds of opportunities through just knowing your shit, I guess, you know what I mean, and kind of like learning. Because I have to ask you this, like I don't think I don't think any of us are I don't even think things move so funny. I think about the predictable revenue guy. I'm sure Aaron Ross, these kind of guys where. What a lot of the stuff that's in that book now is sort of antiquated. Like it doesn't work anymore, right? It's not really the truth anymore. And guys like that kind of they're the, but they're trying to keep up too, right? Like everybody's kind of trying to like find their sort of little corner of this thing, and so there is no real true experts. But I think in the learning process, right? Like you're learning, and then you're tweeting, and then you're learning, and then you're making videos, and you're learning, and you're writing blog posts, and you're learning. It's like it enhances your learning style. I'm curious of your kind of experience just sort of coming out, truly coming out of the woodwork, like coming out of the blue, college student building these agencies, these kind of small agencies at the time that are now becoming these bigger agencies. You were mastering systems, you were mastering outreach, you were outreach is sales. So you're mastering this relationship building, this kicking off of these relationships. And I'm kind of curious how you see that, like, when did you feel that confidence, I guess, to like get out there and start sharing content, to start saying, yo, I'm doing this and it's working. Everybody check this out, and like feeling that confidence? Because I have a lot of people that are doing good work and shit, but they have this kind of feeling like, fuck, I'm not like the expert yet. I shouldn't share my content. I'm not really sure yet. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of curious what you seem pretty bravo about. Like you were like, you know what, fuck it, man, I'm learning and I'm going to share like right away. And you continue to do that. And it seems to continue your success propelling forward. So
yeah, I love what you said right there, because it's like recently, like on Twitter, like I haven't had the urge to really tweet because I'm like, I haven't really been learning, right? And I've been stressing, like as soon as Q4 started, I was like, I got to start reading again, because a lot of like my knowledge and like what I practice and stuff comes from me just reading and learning and trying different things. And for
right.
I really all of Q3, I wasn't doing that, right? And if you look at my Twitter content, it's like really repetitive stuff, right? So straight up, it is, and it's because I wasn't learning and I wasn't trying new things, and really like Q3 we did well for our agencies. Like we did really well. It's like best quarter yet, but it's like there was like definitely a lot of things that I should have learned more about and dive deeper in, and I just wasn't putting that like active force into it. So yeah, that was that's just kind of like my little thing on that. But in terms of like putting out content, it's actually funny. I'm actually one of those guys who hates putting myself out there. Like I never thought like a year ago I'd be posting daily on Twitter about what I'm doing in the business, right? Like I just never liked that. And even right now, like I still have the mindset of like when I figure out something that's like gold, like I know it's gonna crush and I can take this across all the businesses, I like don't like to put that on Twitter, because I'm like, this is something that I keep into myself. And I'll do that for a lot of the little tiny things that I figure out. But I think what pushed me was, I think it was actually Ty Frankel. So I met him on LinkedIn, which is funny, right? And he was showing me, and like I saw him on Twitter too, and like I've seen him on Twitter. And then he was like, dude, because I was showing him a lot of stuff I'm working on, and I'm pretty sure he was just like, dude, like this stuff is like really, really like brilliant. Like you should be tweeting about this. Like you can grow a massive audience. And then I was like, you know what? Like, let me just try it. Let me just see what's good, right? And I did, and like I think my first tweet was like a thread of like all the apps that I use within the agency at that time, and it kind of just took off, and then from there I was just able to kind of grow the audience.
It goes to show you again, man, you just sort of attract these. If you don't have the confidence, you just need that person on the other side going like, hey bro, like shit, put it out there, you know what I mean? Like what are you doing holding this in, right? So huge, man. And I think it's really cool, man. I think to watch your development, you said you tweet, and I think that's like a really interesting point to zoom in on, because marketing is repetition to some extent, right? Like to some level, marketing is about, it's sort of a part of brand, right? It's sort of a smaller part of branding, and branding is like understanding your point, like your opinion, your conviction, right, of like what this shit is. Like you believe that outbound absolutely works, and if you double down on outbound, you will get more clients. You believe, like there are these things and these mechanics, about the personalization and how you're doing this and how you're doing that and how you're right. Like all these things are sort of convictions in your mind. You're not taking. I mean, sure, you're reading and getting influence, but you're not taking it anywhere else. But you're dipping into content. You're dipping into content. Recently, down on SEO, you're down on content now. You're trying to get out there in a whole new light, right, beyond just Twitter. Your strategy is for that? Is there a lot of repetition in that? Or are you kind of like, how are you seeing an SEO or a content right now?
Yeah, so with all the companies specifically, we're definitely looking at like SEO to be like kind of just to bring that organic traffic, because like I mean I've talked to like a lot of guys that don't have personal brands, they don't have big sales teams, and like literally all they have is just a really good SEO strategy, and that's all they do.
Yep.
And like these guys are like way more successful than I am. Like I was just talking to I'm not sure if I should name drop, but he runs a SaaS company, a data as a service SaaS company, and they're at 150K MRR he did that strictly off of SEO before he even started hiring any salespeople. And so, that's kind of had my head thinking like, oh, maybe we should be looking at SEO a little bit differently. So SEO is definitely something we want to do for each company. Like specifically, like we've hired Cabal for a couple of them right now, and just trying to make sure that the guys who know that stuff best just do it, just so we don't waste our time, not doing what we're best at, right? And so. Right. That's been a huge thing. And then as well as kind of like the personal brand content, like I definitely want to start getting a little bit more into like other spaces and other communities. So right now, I'm just doing tweets, but I just got added as a publisher for MakerPad. And so that's going to be really fun, just putting out blogs on there. And then, that's really, really about it. But I definitely want to start getting more into LinkedIn, just start putting out more content on there because I don't really post at all on there. My LinkedIn profile, if you look at it, so like it's just so unkept because I haven't updated it at all, which is funny because I tweet a lot about LinkedIn outreach and stuff like that. But it's like, hey, I'm using all my clients' accounts. I'm not using my account for it, and so that is definitely something I need to get going. And then I think YouTube is still like very untapped for like this business space, and so like definitely something I want to get into. And then the last thing, I've been like putting this off forever, but I want to really do a podcast just like you. Like I think it's so cool just to talk to like really good friends as well as guys who are like way more successful and just really pick their head. Like it's the best.
And it really is. I mean, I got to say, I've been doing this this is like 2 weeks in right now. We haven't even gotten an episode out yet, but by the time people listen to this, there's going to be a few out. And yeah, it's fun, man. I mean, it really is fun. I see the power in it. It's kind of funny because I have a buddy I'm actually going to bring on the podcast. And this dude, he's so far outside of sort of like the Twitter world and the business world. He's more of a, ex kind of rock star type dude. He was a musician. I actually toured with him a bunch. So we toured around the world a little bit, and I know the guy real well, but he runs a podcast that's all about like politics and stuff and kind of psychology and, different kind of real deep stuff. He's a big reader and all this stuff. And he said something to me the other day. I think I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like podcasts are the heavy metal or the rock music of our generation or something. It's like podcasting is more important to get these messages out and these interesting conversations, than even music and stuff. So he kind of quit doing music just to start doing these podcast things. It's really interesting. I'm kind of finding it from a lot of different angles, not just business, but people kind of being able to just get out there and like interview people. So yeah, you'd be great as a podcast host. I know it. And, that'd be fantastic. So we're all looking forward to that. Well, cool, man. I kind of want to zoom into a couple other things with you. You'd mentioned systems. You had mentioned sales. So I think I kind of wanted to start with systems because you are definitely the Zapier, one of my Zapier favorites, man. One of my automation favorites. You are... it's something that's not reported on a lot. You know what I mean? It's something it exists. And talk about a good SEO strategy. I mean, you'll find those guys on every goddamn page of Google somehow. But and we talked about that before, I know. But with systems and stuff, how do you approach systems? Like we're talking to some people right now that are kind of maybe they've got their agency running. Maybe this is just an idea or a concept, and they want to jump in. How are you approaching systems when you start one of these new ventures, and what's your priorities, and how do you go about kind of that process from like manual systems to hiring to automation?
Yeah. So when I look at systems, it's different when you talk about SaaS, but like specifically with agencies, right? Like there's 5 pieces. And first of all, before I even start into this, like if you don't have a team, like if you have you and another VA, don't worry about systems. If you're under 10K MR, don't worry about systems. Like those are 2 things that you're just doing to cope against really the hardest thing, which is sales, right? And doing the outreach and like really going out to people. Like you're just trying to avoid that, and you shouldn't avoid that because that's what's going to grow your business, right? At the end of the day. But if you kind of like are starting to have an SDR or like an appointment setter and like a closer in, and you have an account manager and you have people that are doing fulfillment, that's when you really want to start looking at systems and really figure out how can I intertwine everything, right? Get all your applications speaking to each other, get everything just like so clearly integrated that everything is just super smooth. And so when I look at agencies, right, there's 5 pieces that all agencies share in common, right? You got lead generation, right? So like, what channels are you using to generate leads? How are you generating the leads? Is it a caller? Is it SDR? Like, what is it, right? And then you got the sales side, right? So once the closer gets the lead and he's on that first initial call, like, what is he doing right there, right? And then how is he following up? Are you arming him with content? Like what's that look like, right? And then you got the onboarding, right? And onboarding is like where you really start to kind of get into like Zapier and automations and stuff like that. The other two were just kind of like, you know, in the CRM and using outreach tools. But onboarding, you know, you really need like a nice like little intake form. You know, we use Go High Level and use their form builders for this. And then you want that form to kind of shoot over information to all the other applications to auto create accounts and set off tasks and, you know, put them in their project management system, all that good stuff. So onboarding is very, very important. And then you got to look at kind of like the fulfillment, right? So your actual service, you want to break that down, right? And so my favorite way to kind of like do things is like I look at like for fulfillment, I'll look at each stage in the fulfillment piece and then each subtask that goes under each stage. And that's kind of how you know, kind of build a project management system. And then after you look at fulfillment, then you got the last thing, which is retention, right? Because no matter what, you're going to have clients leave. Like, you know, we have clients leave because they're like, oh, I just had too many clients, right? And so it's like they're going to leave no matter what. And so you want to figure out how you can mitigate that, as well as how you can, you know, increase the lifetime value of a client. And so like, and then like, you know, really, and then like on retention, I'm also looking at, okay, how can I retain them, get more money out of them, put them in different services, you know, maybe something else suits them. Like, what can I do there to kind of make sure that, you know, I'm making as much money as I can per each account. And so those are kind of the 5 stages I kind of look at when I look at building agencies. And so, you know, recently we've been able to kind of get some equity in some really cool agencies. And I kind of just look at those 5 pieces and figure out which one's the most important, where are they struggling the most, and then kind of, you know, put the pieces together. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
Amazing, man. Amazing. That's great. That's great information, man, for everybody. I think, you know, kind of getting to that level. I want to back up a little bit from there because you mentioned a couple really interesting things in there. And I think, you know, laying out the 5 building blocks is so interesting because, you know, obviously, you know, everybody struggles at some point with one of those things or more, right? Like there's always a pain point in there. And I think with the companies that you're sort of the portfolio of companies you're dealing with, you're getting that experience of seeing not the software high level, but you're seeing high level kind of how these things are running, right? And implementing things into it to kind of fix that pain point, right? As a true consultant does. I wanted to back up a little bit because obviously all that can be kind of high level speak, right? We're talking about pretty high level shit. We're like looking at these systems. But when you're in the damn cogs of the machine and you're like, you know, in the engine and you're fucking, you know, upside down doing your thing, right, with the grease all over you, you know, and everything, it feels a lot different. So I was going to ask you, like, as far as you know, customer relationships, man, I wanted to kind of dip into that with you a little bit because I think, you know, through that whole process, you're building a relationship, right? So lead gen, you're taking that first step. You're trying to get your foot in the door, right? And then you got sales where you're actually building the relationship, building the rapport, taking them to that next step. Now you got fulfillment where you're going to start to actually fulfill. And so the relationship gets serious right here. You actually have to deliver on your promises. That's a whole nother little world that we, you know, obviously we can talk about a little bit later. And then you got retention, where you're going to be dealing with, you know, basically retaining the client, which is that relationship needs to grow. It needs to change. You need to find new ways to help them, et cetera, et cetera. So I was curious, like, just on your experiences with sort of customer relationships, both from the early days of the agencies now to seeing how people deal with it. What do you find are like the key points to building a good relationship that increases retention, that, you know, increases LTV and all this data crap? Forget about the data crap. Let's focus on the actual, like, the people involved. And what does that feel like? What does that look like to you? What do you look to do in that step-by-step process, maybe, or some level of that? You can just speak on it.
Yeah. So this was really hard for me because, like, when you're at like 20 clients, you can kind of manage it yourself, right? Like, you can manage those relationships, but really to break past that for us specifically, you know, it was me not talking to clients anymore, right? It was me not answering their questions or their emails. It was me separating myself from them and really not engaging with them at all, right? And so that was really, really tough for me because I was like, you know, like, what do I tell these guys, right? And so what I found was, like, you know, you got to really just, you know, make sure you hand them off properly. Like right now, I'm not really, I mean, like clients might not even know I run the business, to be honest, because like they don't see me at all, right? Like we have a closer that does the closing. As soon as it's closed, they get an email that's automated from our account manager introducing himself, as well as giving his link to his calendar to kind of bring on his, like to do the actual onboarding call, right? And so what I've found is that, you know, you need like once you're past 20 clients, like you need a dedicated account manager that literally focuses strictly on doing check-in calls, handling all fires, and communicating and doing all this reporting with your clients, right? And obviously the onboarding calls as well. And so like literally he is dedicated to the clients, and he'll do whatever he needs to do to make sure everything's taken care of and just setting the expectations correctly, right? And so that's kind of what as soon as we built that system in, I mean, honestly, like my life got way better and our agency was able to grow way quicker because, you know, we were able to kind of just, I was able to just kind of like fully trust that person to handle the conversations and be able to have those conversations. And, you know, like them not reaching out to me and saying, hey, Nick, you know, sending me emails in the morning, like, hey, Nick, like, you know, the email open rate dropped from 80% to 74. Should we be worried? Things like that, right? Like I don't have to worry about that anymore. Yeah. And then another thing that we did for communications, we removed them out of Slack because, you know, just doing these back and forth conversations in Slack does not do anybody any good. Like you should, like after you're past a certain point with clients, take them out of Slack. It's going to be the best thing that you ever do for your agency. And the reason why is because honestly, like the clients shouldn't have like a full-on thread conversation with you. That's not how you should base the relationship off of. You need to base the relationship off of like what you're going to be providing for them. And so we built a ticketing system within our systems and stuff. And so now they submit tickets to us if they have a question, and if they have like a serious email or a serious question, they can email, you know, the account manager and have it that way. It's just going to allow you to free up mental space so you can really focus on the things that are going to drive your business forward, right? And so that's kind of like certain things that we installed.
Jeez, man, that's huge. And I think, you know, also the ticket system, I really love that you brought that up. So the ticket system also makes it so you can scale so much easier as well, I would imagine, right? You're able to scale the business so much easier because the account manager has, you know, there's open tickets, closed tickets, right? And then he's able to transfer tickets if something's, you know, it just makes like a more robust situation. The client feels like they're being taken care of and that they're at status on all their open requests always, right? So that's so helpful. I'm curious if I can ask you on the training of the account manager. All right, because I know you were dealing with all that in the beginning, right? And a lot of the people listening right now are going to be dealing that's kind of the first thing you want to deal with, right? Because you want to know the customers, you want to learn as much as you can about them, you want to understand their struggles, you want to understand, you know, ways you can make your service better, right? In the very beginning, it's like getting that feedback is absolutely critical. And I mean, my personal opinion is anybody that starts a business should be dealing with that. The founder should be dealing with that in the beginning. Without a doubt, just so they understand everything, you know, the mechanics that are going on within the business and how they can improve. But that is also the first thing that they should outsource once they start, you know, they should delegate. And I'm curious, how does that training look from you? Because here you were getting emails in the morning, getting the stuff, dealing with all the shit. What was your kind of training program when you got with that account manager and you're like, all right, dude, you're dealing with the clients, this is how to do it. I'm curious if there were any like cornerstones that you kind of taught that dude to make sure that, you know, he treated these people the way that you know, to the standard that you had created, right?
Yeah. So great question. So basically the training, what we did, so we did a couple of things, right? So first, before I even started training or hiring or looking for one, the first thing I did was I literally went through like every email, right? Because this is what I noticed, right? About 60% of the questions that clients ask you are literally the same, right? And so you want to kind of make this like I don't know what the right word is, but like a process where you just constantly keep changing like certain things in your business, right? And so a lot of these questions that they were asking me, like I was noticing that they weren't on the onboarding slides. And so I was like, okay, let's go add that into onboarding slide, as well as let's document that question inside of like an FAQ for the account manager that I will manually write out the answer for, right? And so by doing that, now the account manager knows if that question comes up, the answer's right there, and so that he can base his answer off of, you know, what I put up there. And then so that was one huge piece that I did right there, right? And then another thing I did was like, I mean, I recorded all our checking calls, all our onboarding calls, right? And I write feedback on them, right? So that he can see what's good about these onboarding calls and what I did bad about these onboarding calls. And so, there's a couple of things where, I would mess up, right? I'd forget a couple of things that I needed to do in the check-in calls. And so, I'd literally call myself out. I'd do the feedback on it. And so that's kind of how I went about it. And then I even set up Zaps for, so our account managers, they record every single call they're on. And so whenever their call is finished, it gets uploaded into our Notion board or something like that. I can't remember. And we'll go in like monthly and review their calls. Like I'll just pick a couple on there and just write like feedback on it, right? And so from there, they're able to improve. And so that's kind of how I went about the training, just kind of creating like an internal FAQ system so that they can always look at, as well as just letting them see all the interactions I had with my clients, and just kind of putting them on that. And then just general stuff, just making sure that, hey, if you're on a call, turn on your camera, make sure you're not in a noisy setting, and like just like the basic stuff that like, most people just kind of know, and just like, how to, properly text the client, right? Like in terms of like punctuation, and when you call them, like how to address them, things like that. Just wrote those stuff out and just basically put them through a training program kind of like that. And then we let them ride and let them do the things. And then anytime they ask a question that's like not like something I've interacted with before, go update the internal FAQs, things like that. And so that's kind of how we built that system in. And so now, it's just like a process that trains itself.
That's awesome, man. Awesome insights right there. I think people can take a lot from that. I mean, that's, I think the iterative, I think the word you were looking for, iterative, the iterative nature of it, I think is beautiful, right? Because you're like, things come up, right? Things come up, problems come up and stuff like that. And you just have to kind of keep adding, keep improving, and keep changing things, and improving the systems. Today we did a podcast interview today, and I thought it was awesome. He had mentioned with David Riggs, and David Riggs was mentioning kind of how in his training and his processes, exposing a problem is not enough. You need to expose a solution, right? And kind of this mindset of training people where you're kind of telling them, hey man, it's good if you bring up a problem because that's super important. We need to fix that problem, but don't just bring a problem and think that I'm going to congratulate you. Bring the problem and bring a solution and bring the pricing for that solution and just let me check mark that shit. You know what I mean? Like just, everybody on the team should be bringing solutions all the time, which I thought was really insightful, and kind of combined with what you just said. It's like, this is how you get people to perform to their top potential, right? It's just give them all the support you can and allow them to just do their thing, man, and be human beings and become better human beings through the process, right? Just dealing with clients and stuff. So really great, man. Really great stuff. I got another question for you real quick. That's a real interesting one, I think. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it because I got my own thoughts on it. We can kind of go back and forth on it. I'd be curious to kind of just converse on this. So Outbound, like we mentioned earlier with Aaron Ross and predictable revenue, there's many other examples of this, right? Of kind of this sort of some things that are slightly antiquated, I guess, about the way people think of outbound. I'm curious on your and also let me mention also we got like the LinkedIn connection request limits. We got LinkedIn kind of slowly turning that platform into a paid only platform, right? With the in-mails and the ad platform and all this kind of stuff. Really curious on your end, what do you see as the future of outbound sales and the future of outbound lead generation? And you can dip into any kind of aspect of it as you want. Like if you want to dip into it as a service, agency service, that's fine. Or if you want to dip into it just in general for sales reps and everybody. But I'm just curious on your thoughts on sort of what's going to be the future of outbound? What are the key things to be focusing on, and how can someone kind of get ahead of the pack on this stuff, man? Because it's changing quick.
Yeah. So I think outbound's always going to be here forever, right? Like if outbound doesn't work for someone, it comes down to three things, right? Like it's just the offer, the targeting, and the copy, right? And if you don't have those three things down, like it doesn't matter how you send the cold email, right? It's just not going to work. And so I think outbound is like forever going to be there. Like I don't think it's ever going to change. I think the way that you kind of go about it, like the platforms you use, the tools you use, I think those things are always constantly going to change, right? Just because the atmosphere is always changing. But I don't think outbound will ever go anywhere. I think right now, I think the AI lines, like Quicklines and stuff like that, I think that stuff is like literally game changer because it's like that stuff is going to work right now, but I'm pretty sure once it gets overplayed, it's not going to work, right? And so right now is the time that you need to be on these kind of platforms, right? And be blasting cold emails that are personalized with AI. it just makes so much sense because I think in like 10 years they're going to be able to see through that kind of stuff and just be able to it's not going to hit the market like it does right now. And so yeah, that's kind of how I see the entire space changing with LinkedIn. With LinkedIn, I think once again, I think LinkedIn works best if you use it as a follow-up, right? Instead of like the initial contact, because people just get hit constantly with people that are just doing email only, or I mean LinkedIn only campaigns. And so like all of our clients see the most success when we use that as a follow-up, right? Like because we usually typically when we sign a client, we onboard them and we launch their campaigns. Those first 2 weeks, we're warming up the domain, but we'll just go ahead and launch LinkedIn campaigns for those first 2 weeks because why not, right? And those campaigns, like truly, like they work, they don't work, like but like every time when we do the email first and then bring it over to LinkedIn, like that works every single time, right? And so I think if you use it like that, then it's always going to work. And I think, a lot of these platforms that are allowing you to put like GIFs in the campaigns and stuff, I think that is just game changer just because no one really sees that as much. And so like those are the things that I would look at right now. And that's kind of what I would see. And then also one thing I'd like to also add is like a lot of people are scared to do like bulk sending because they're like, oh, bulk sending doesn't work. It's not personalized. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Right. If you have the offer and you have the targeting down and you write some good copy and you do bulk sending, oh my God, dude, it's game changer, man. We're doing like 10,000 emails like a week and a month for some of the companies that we run. And it works so well. Like it just works. Right. And it's because we have those three things down to the T.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, that brings me to a couple other questions, but I think just to summarize what you just said, I think so. Number one is personalization. I think that was one thing you mentioned, and that's really important for the future of outbound. Like more personalization, the better at this point, I would think, because people just tired of getting that same fucking message over and over again. I know, and you are too, and I am too. So that's just the way it is. And then you were talking about kind of like using email as that intro. That bulk, what should I say, kind of scalable aspect of it, using LinkedIn as more of that follow-up since they put these limits, since people are so tired of getting spammed up in there, by everybody and their mother in there. So couple of really cool things. I also love that you kind of mentioned the offer, the target, and the copy. And that's like the three cornerstones. And I think that's just so important to remember that the offer is part of that, guys. Like the copy can be banging, but if the offer is not relevant, interesting, valuable, different, right? Like, and so there's a lot of room, I think, for people to jump in and get great results with outbound if they're just willing to, bring a new offer to the market or learn more about their ideal client so they can understand what offer would be the most interesting to them. So that's just huge. I also love that you were talking about scaling it up because that's something that not a lot of people talk about. And I think that it certainly works, but you got to get those offers nailed down, right, and all that stuff. So what I was going to ask you next was basically, how do you see testing? Because obviously you don't want to go and send 10,000 emails a week if you're not sure, that the offer and the and the targeting and the copy are A class, right? So I'm curious, like, how do you see testing? Do you see it in like batches? How many emails do you really need to send before you start to kind of feel like you're seeing some confidence in that campaign to scale it up? And kind of what does that look like to you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is to be honest, like our testing, like that's like one piece I feel like we could definitely improve on, especially for clients. Like it's kind of hard to do it the way we kind of go about our outreach. On the testing side, though, so I don't really look at open rate too much. Like the main thing I'm looking for is the response rate. Like that's the biggest indicator, like if your offer is actually working or not, right? Yeah. And so then I kind of look at what is the response rate, right? And then are they positive or negative? And so we track our positive response rate versus our negative response rate to figure out what copy and offer kind of works the best. And then on the targeting side, and then so this is one thing, right? Like if the response rate is really good. And it's all positive, I know that we have the right targeting, we have the right offer, right? But let's say that the positive response rate is like there's nothing there, right? Like it's let's just say it's mostly negative responses, right? Then I know that probably the offer is messed up or the targeting is messed up, right? And we'll see what it is, situation to situation, but typically it'll probably be the offer that's messed up. And so, we'll once again just rework that solution right there and then come back to the drawing boards and, rework everything, how we go about it. And then, usually it's banging. But
Love it.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so how many emails do you send generally, like before you kind of start to look at those rates and sort of like survey it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if we're doing like bulk sending, I like to just do batches of like 500 to really figure it out. Because your response rate's always going to be higher on like personalized emails. And so, if we're doing personalization, then I just look at like 100 emails and I'm able to usually tell and like to do it in batches of 100. But then it's also like kind of hard to with like the split testing and stuff, because it's like some markets aren't active on email, right? And it's like, and then like the time of the day kind of plays, or the time of the month. Like if you're doing it at the end of December, like those results aren't really like good results to kind of look at. And it's like, there's just so many factors that go into it. And so I just kind of look at it more of like, okay, how can we just do more consistent outreach and then look at it overall, right? Like if responses are being good overall, I'm not looking to like tweak the campaign a lot to try to get it, 1% more better or whatever. I'm like, okay, let's just scale this up, right? Like that's just the easier way to kind of go about it. Yeah.
Got you. Well, yeah, because you never know how many people are actually in market right at that time as well, and there is a lot of factors. And I think this is really good information for people listening, man. That are doing this because people ask me all the time, how many emails do I send before I know whatever, like question after question after question about some technical stuff, and you're going, man, you got to feel it, right? You got to feel it when it's working, And especially for clients, it's very difficult, because a lot of people are signing these kind of short-term contracts and not getting a really big commitment, not getting money up front, and they're just struggling because it's like, man, I mean, any sales or any marketing campaign is always going to take 3 to 6 months to even know if you're even on the right track, right?
Yeah,
and
100%.
So it's really interesting on that, man. That a lot, I think that this is one of those things that all of us need to remember, especially in the agency side of things that. It's paper performance is great, man, but it can be extremely lucrative, but you got to lock in, get some skin in the game, get that commitment that I'm going to be able to get you ROI. I'm going to be able to get you return on your investment, but we're going to have to look at it 12 months down the line. It ain't going to be fucking 2 months down the line. We're going to see a bunch of ROI. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree with that, but I'm kind of curious, like, how do you set expectations with your clients on that kind of stuff? Is that difficult, or do you?
You said that like perfectly on the tee, and I'll explain I'll explain exactly what happened, right? So, I'm at 20 clients, they're all in performance, right? And some of the clients have like banging offers. Some of them were like recently funded companies by like BCG and stuff like that. They have really good offers, right? And then I had like typical like email marketing agencies that like, they don't it's a crowded space. Their offer's not anything unique. And it's like one of those Facebook ad, like one of those courses they tell you like, oh, say you're gonna give them a full refund and an extra $100 and a gift card to Starbucks, something like that. And like those things are kind of cheesy, right? Yeah. Like they're not going to really hit the market like that. And so, we were signing new clients and we weren't really making much money on their accounts, right? Because we're all performance based. And, that's when it kind of hit me like, oh, the offer is literally the most important piece. Like that's what it is. That's what the cold email is. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you have personalization. It doesn't matter if you have all these like little cool little hacks and stuff. Like it's the offer. It's the offer. And so then we shifted our entire model, right? We ended up firing a lot of our clients that didn't have like really banging campaigns. We kept those like really good clients that had banging campaigns, kept them on performance. And then I was like, okay, for all the new clients that we sign on, we're literally going to put them on 3-month retainers. We're gonna basically, not promise performance. We're not going to promise appointments. We're going to basically say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm not going to say it too much on here because I don't want to release our offer and stuff like that. We're going to do X, Y, Z. And it's going to take you about 3 months before you really see results. And then the way we kind of do the split testing with our clients is our account manager hops on calls with them once a month and, literally just ask them like, hey, how's the campaign results going? Are you getting good responses? Are you getting no responses? And then kind of rework the solution from there and kind of like have feedback from them. And then really, because like at the end of the day, like they're the experts in their industry, or they should be at least. If they're not, it's just going to be a business that's going to die. And just kind of ask them like questions, right? Like it just ask them like, hey, like, do you think this target's right? Like, do you think, like, is there something in this copy you think we could change? And like kind of get feedback from them, and then kind of work it together, and then usually we're able to get them results. But some, like, I'll be like, and I think anybody that says they get results for every single one of their clients is completely lying, right? Like, there are clients, and this is the tough thing about being a marketing agency in any space, right? In any vertical, like, it doesn't matter if you do paid media or not. You might be the absolute best at your craft, right? I'm talking literally the number one guy in the world, but if your client doesn't have a good product or service, doesn't matter what you do, like, you're just not gonna be able to grow it. Like, that's just simply put, right? And so I think that's a huge like mind shift that a lot of these agency owners can't get over, because it's like they have one bad client and then they're like, oh, I didn't get results for them, blah 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 blah, and then they're like freaking out, and they're like holding that guy's hand and they're doing everything for him. It's like, bro, if you
they get the imposter syndrome, starts to creep in, right? You start to feel like, shit, am I getting results? Am I even worthy to do this, right? And it's like, whoa, back up. Look at the client, right? I had one guy sort of mentoring, talking to, helping campaign, and he was telling me, okay, it's a branding agency. And I go, red flag immediately for me, like, oh, it's a branding agency. All right, let me see their website. Let's check their website, all right? And you go check their website, and you're like, oh, no, this isn't a good client. They're not good at brand. They're a brand agency that ain't good at branding, you know what I mean? So, these are things that you just have to learn through the experience. And I love what you're saying, because I think, the biggest advice, I think, coming from this specific episode so far to me is just that, like, you gotta kind of vet your clients. You gotta look at your systems. You gotta make sure you have your shit going on your end, but you gotta look at your clients too, and you gotta make sure that, especially if you're working with businesses, small businesses especially, you need to be very critical. Do that, and you need to know what a good offer looks like. You need to do your research. You need to study, who are the big players in this industry and how are they structuring it.
Yeah, I was going to just say one thing I would add on to there is, like, if you should, like, with your, like the way I would look at every agency right now is, like, you should have an initial offering, right? That's very like task based, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you for like a certain dollar amount, right? And then that, like, whatever you're doing in terms of fulfillment, like, it's very tangible. They can see that you did 1, 2, and 3 things, right? Like, whatever you promised them. And then, if that, like, whatever and it's kind of hard to explain, but like, because it's like you can apply it to any agency, but like, whatever you did right there, if that lets you know that they are, like, getting great results, or, they're going to be a paying client, then you should push them to a performance-based thing and really pump on them, right? Like, really help them, because that, at the end of the day, with performance, you're probably going to get paid more than you would with the retainer, right? And so that's how I would structure it. Like, we basically, like, with LeadBird specifically, we always start them on like a starter plan, right? And then we're able to upsell them into a performance-based thing, right? And then even from the performance-based thing, we're about to, whenever they're kind of like, hey, we're going to build this in-house, we're able to supply them with all the SaaS tools that we own, right? Or even supply them with closers from Closify. And so, we're able to bake in all these little cross-sells, downsells, and upsells to just kind of really, like, maximize the LTV.
Well, and that takes me back to our, the beginning of the conversation. We were talking about partnerships, man. But, when you have those partnerships in place, right, and you're able to kind of funnel things different ways, and, come partner programs with people that you trust and you like, it's just, get out there, put yourself out there. Seems to be the most important thing these days, for an agency especially.
And the other cool thing is like, in these partnerships, if you own a piece of the business, it's like you're double dipping, right? Like, you're getting paid for them on your main agency, and then you're getting paid for them on your SaaS tools, and then you're getting paid for them on the upsells and the cross sells and the downsells. And it's like, you're just maximizing the amount of money that gets brought back to you. And it's like, you get equity in that company too. It's like, if it's a sellable asset that can truly be sold in the next 5-10 years, like, just driving that up, right? So things like that just make it like a no-brainer.
That's right. And you're also helping these people, man. I mean, besides adding money to your agency, you're really helping these people, because, and it's hard to fucking hire a closer, man. You know it is. And I interviewed Alex, and good God, man, Closify is awesome. And, it's like building resources, building partnerships with those people, man. You're helping your clients in ways that you couldn't, because who the hell wants to add a closing program to their lead generation agency? Nobody, man. That's a lot to take on all of a sudden, right? And I hear people bring that to me sometimes. It's like, bro, just, find partnerships, man. There's stuff that you can't do. People do better than you, and all this kind of stuff. So Man, this is great, dude. This has been so fun, man. I'm loving this. I'm kind of curious, I know you have to run onto some other things, man. I know you got a busy day ahead of you, but yeah, maybe we can kind of close with sort of what you're doing right now, a little bit of a peek into the future. What are you looking to kind of accomplish, by the end of the year, next year? What's your outlook looking like, and anything you kind of want to promote here that would help people kind of scale their stuff up, do better, and anything like that, man. Anything you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, future goals. I mean, that's a good one because it's like I'm still kind of like figuring it out as I go because I'm like I really don't know what I want in the next 10 years, and usually I do, right? But everything's changed so much in the last like 3-4 months where I'm like, I'm working on multiple agencies, multiple SaaS companies, all in kind of like this outreach space. We have a ton of products about to release, things that we've already been using for the last couple of months, and it's just been so much fun, and I've seen a lot of growth from using them. I definitely want to have a couple exits in the future from either the agencies or the SaaS companies, and really right now, all my time and energy is spent on just making sure that that they're really operational, like they can survive on their own, as well as I'm able to provide a ton of lead gen through whatever methods that I've figured out. And so that's where most of my focus and time and energy is spent on. And I really just want to grow this portfolio as big as it can be, right? Because it's like, I've had, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to say this, but I've made enough to where I'm good. I know it's going to be there for a while, but it's like, and like I'm financially secure, I guess I could say that, which is weird. I've never said that on a podcast, but
Fantastic, man.
We're doing really well, but it's just like for me right now, it's not really about the money. It's like I really want to be the biggest player in the space. Like I want to be able to be the next Lemonless. I want to be the next outreach and whatever it is. I really want to take my companies up there, and so that's kind of like really I guess the goal.
Fantastic, man. I love it. I mean, I think it's super inspiring to anyone listening, man, that, especially when you know a space, it's like you can be the best in it. It is 100% possible that, you can come in and own that corner of the space. And, as long as you have that, like that conviction and that confidence, you can do this thing, man. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what you're building. I'm looking forward to seeing what you release. I look forward to seeing your exit. It's wonderful to be an interview, man. I can't wait to do another one of these where we check in a little bit down the line and see where you're at then. That's going to be super exciting for me and everybody. So I'm going to wrap up by saying, hey, man, follow this man, Nick Abraham. His handle on Twitter is Nick Abraham 12. And this man is dropping value all the time. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like the dude doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat, he's just a goddamn machine building these businesses, looking for this big exit, looking for a couple of nice exits, partnering with the right people, just a total success. So really, really happy to interview you, man. Go follow him on Twitter. Check out LeadBird if you're looking for help with lead generation, or you want to kind of check out a model that's working. You know what I mean? Because this man is absolutely killing with it. Not the easiest model to make work. I think you agree. It's a fucking tough thing to do. So going uphill, you're fucking crushing it for going uphill, man. I'll give you that 100%. Yeah, just wish all the best for you, man. You're fucking killing it. Yeah, we'll do another one of these in a few months, man. When you've gotten your first exit, and we'll start to zoom a little more into that and the process within that, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, man. Talk to you soon, Nick.
All right. I really hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Always Building. If you want to learn more about Always Building, our community, our membership group, and exclusive webinars and trainings and discounts on software and all kinds of fun stuff, get help along the journey so you're not all alone, go ahead and check out alwaysbuilding.io. That's alwaysbuilding.io. And again, thank you so much. Best of luck on your journey, and you just let me know. You can reach out to me on Twitter or via email, alex@alwaysbuilding.io, or at always_building on Twitter. Okay, thanks again. Have a great one.